And let's move on into our next discussion, and we're going to be taking a look at the USC Trojans. And I know the Trojans making some news as of yesterday with athletic director Lynn Swann stepping down in a letter addressed to the Trojan community. University President Carol L. Folt said Swann's resignation is effective immediately and called him a leader on and off the field at USC for nearly 5 decades. Really, and this is why I see it as really him getting fired, Folt also said to the LA Times that he felt that this was the professional thing to do, to resign and allow me to build my team. That really is the gist of it. So I kind of look at that as, hey, Lynn, you want us to fire you or do you want to resign and kind of save face a little bit? Really not going to dive into the athletic director search and who they could get, only because I feel like Trojan fans would tell me I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not a USC alum. I'm not a diehard USC fan. And you guys deserve better than that. So what I'm going to dive into is something that I can talk about, and that's seeing this team on the field and what Trojan fans can expect from the Trojans the rest of the year and from Kedon Slovis the rest of this year. Because really coming in, this was supposed to be the JT Daniels show. JT Daniels played most of, threw for 34 attempts in the Fresno State win, but Kedon Davis came in late when JT Daniels left. I believe that was with a concussion. Fact check me down below, Trojan fans. But Slovis came in. Daniels was not ready to go for game 2, and that's where Slovis got the start in game number 2 against the Stanford Cardinal, where he went 28 of 23, 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs, and a 45-20 Stanford win. And first, I'm going to give my thoughts on that game because I think that it needs to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt. Because first off, did Slovis play very well? Absolutely he did. And I apologize for the language, but he played phenomenally. Almost 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, did not make a mistake, didn't let that Stanford defense take the ball away from him. He did everything that you wanted in a first start. And honestly, for me, I didn't even think that he was going to get the start in game number 2. I thought it would be someone like Matt Fink. I remember, and I don't remember his name, and it pains me. But when Brandon and I went to VidCon, I think this was so the last 2 Dave and I went to, this was nearly 3 years ago. This was when Matt Fink was just coming in. I remember our Uber driver, we took an Uber from the hotel in Anaheim back to the John Wayne Airport in, I want to say that's Orange County, and our Uber driver decked out in USC gear, USC shirt, USC shorts, USC sandals, could not stop talking about Matt Fink, the guy from Rancho Cucamonga who's supposed to put USC back on the map. He's supposed to be the next Sam Darnold. I was kind of thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe they roll with him in this game, kind of give him a chance. They did not. They went with Slovis, and it seems to be the right decision. However, the grain of salt that I'm going to throw in there is, yes, Slovis played well. Slovis played well. I'm going to trip over that name just because I can't speak clearly and smoothly. But the grain of salt is that Stanford was without KJ Costello. Did not play in the game because he suffered the injury against Northwestern. He wasn't ready to go. And I know, can't make excuses, but I always just sit here and wonder how the game would be a little bit different if Costello played. Maybe it's a 45-40, 45-35. It's a closer game if Costello's in there. But really, when it came to Slovis versus the Cardinal defense didn't have much answers for him. So just wanted to speak on that a little bit. But what can you expect the rest of the year? And for me, I would think, unless JT Daniels is absolutely, and I'm going to fact check myself a little bit here, this is something where I think if I'm the Trojans, I just roll with Slovis the rest of the year, even if Daniels is ready to come back later in the year, you got to roll with Kedon Slovis as of right now. But to me, the biggest thing for this team is I wasn't very high on them in the offseason. Let's see. What was my record for them? I saw this team as a 6-6 team, 4-5 with losses to Stanford because I didn't think Costello was going to be injured, Utah, Washington, Notre Dame, Arizona, and Oregon. Now I think this could be a team. You beat Stanford, so automatically you take one loss away. You're up to 7 wins. Arizona hasn't really impressed me like I thought they would have. There's 8 wins. This is a team that under Slovis could be an 8-win team, but even if they steal a couple, could be a 9-10 win team. And for me, the big thing is the next chunk in their schedule. The Trojans have to me, it's like murderous row for the Trojans schedule, because this Saturday you go on the road at BYU, where BYU, yes, I think they're 2-0 this year. No, they lost to Utah. 1-1 this year, where they played Utah tough in that Holy War game. I know they lost 30-12, but for the most part, Zach Wilson and that offense made a couple mistakes early, but at halftime, that was a 9-6 game. It wasn't until the second half where Utah kind of blew it open and ran away with that one. And then BYU goes into Tennessee, into Knoxville, and gets a 29-26 victory against the Volunteers. So to me, I feel like this BYU game this week could be a sneaky game where the Trojans have to be on their A game if they want to win. Then after that, it's like you come home and play Utah. The best thing about it is that you're coming home. Is Utah a perfect team? No, they are not. The game for them I watched, I didn't get to see them play NIU this past week, but watching them play BYU, Tyler Huntley did not look on his A game, and I know it's week 1, and I know he played better against NIU. He also had about, if I'm doing my math correctly, about 13 less attempts. He had 19 in this game compared to 33 against BYU. No, that's wrong. He had 16, so he had 3 more. He's not going to throw the ball a lot. I was reading Zach Wilson's attempts. He had 33 in that one. So Utah, there's a chance you beat them. I just don't know if you do, because you've got Zach Moss, who's going to be a weapon for that Utah team. Tyler Huntley can beat you as well. Really, if you're going to beat Utah, Slovis has to be on his A game yet again in order to beat them in front of that home crowd. That's really, I'm going to harp at it again. That's the biggest positive about that game, is that you'll have that USC home crowd behind you. Then after that, you've got Washington, you've got Notre Dame. These are very, very 2 tough opponents. Washington, I'm going to say, obviously, is, if I'm going to rank these 4 on the most winnable, BYU's the most winnable. Washington is the second most winnable. Utah is the third, and then Notre Dame is the fourth. And I mean, Washington playing at Washington, Cal came in and got a 1-point victory over the Huskies this week. Eason didn't look good, so I mean, you could beat them. And then the toughest opponent, like I said, is Notre Dame. They didn't play week 2. They'll play this week against New Mexico, but this is going to be a very different Notre Dame team. We'll see whether they lose or win at Georgia. If they lose that game, how does that affect them? I don't think a loss to Georgia means they come into your game less ready and less wanting to win that game. But it'll be interesting. If they come in undefeated, it'll be something to talk about, because USC could play spoiler. To me, it comes down to there, because the Notre Dame game isn't going to affect the Pac-12. The BYU game isn't going to affect the Pac-12. This isn't a team that has playoff aspirations, and we're not looking at this team, even with Slovis, as a playoff team. So for me, it's really the Utah and Washington game that I'm really looking at, where now with Slovis, I feel like that Washington game and also because of how they played in week 2, is very winnable, or could be a winnable game. The only thing that's questioning in my mind is it's on the road. And that's the biggest reason why I'm looking at this BYU game, because this is the first time we're going to see Slovis on the road. Yes, we saw him in week 1. Yes, we saw him start week 2. But this is the first time we get to see him on the road away from USC. If he comes out and plays strong against BYU, I might be picking the Trojans when they come to town to play Washington on September 28th. That means that Utah game is really like they could either win or lose that game in my mind, because Arizona has not impressed me in the first 2 weeks of this year. So I think USC with Slovis can get the win there. Colorado's a winnable game. Arizona State and Cal, those will be tough because they're on the road. Arizona State's played well. Cal's obviously off to a shocking 2-0 start, beating Washington in my mind. UCLA should be a winnable game. So really to me, it's if you can take one of these next two, you either got to beat our next 2 Pac-12 games. If Slovis can lead this team to wins either against Utah or a win either against Washington, that means if this team takes care of business and beats Oregon, they could put themselves in a prime situation to win their side. And actually, when I look at it, I'm going to flip. They're going to need to beat Utah, because in my mind, I was thinking that they were in the north. You guys are in the south. So I'm kind of looking at that. I'm going to change my opinion here. You got to beat Utah. If you don't beat Utah, and really, let me pull up Utah's schedule really quick, because I had Utah this season as a undefeated team. I had them undefeated regular season, then losing in the Pac-12 title game. But looking at their schedule, I mean, yeah, they've got a pretty cupcake schedule when I look at it, because I mean, Washington State may be tough, but that's at Utah. Washington, yes, it's on the road at Washington, but I think Utah can get the win there. They don't play Oregon. Really, you got to win that game then, because like looking at Utah's schedule, if they beat UCLA or USC, pardon me, Trojan fans are going to jump all over me for that. But if they beat you guys, USC, I still see them as 12-0. I forgot they had a very, 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 very favorable schedule. So kind of to double back on what I was saying, you got to beat Utah. Washington, I think you can beat, but it won't be the end of the world if you lose that game, because as long as you have the tiebreaker over Utah, you should be able to go. But kind of thinking about what we should expect, kind of put a bow on this, because this segment might be a little bit shorter. Might be a little bit shorter than the first one. Really, this is all about the future in my mind. Slovis may be the best thing to happen to USC this year. May be able to, in my mind, save the season, because, like I said, what Slovis could be able to do is flip you from a 6-6 team to more of a 9-3, 8-4 kind of a team. Because, like I said, I had you at 6-6. You already beat Stanford. That's 7-5. I mean, if you beat Washington, that's 8-4. You beat Arizona, that's 9-3. Like that's the kind of thing that Slovis can do, is those games, and we've already seen one of them. Those games, we can for sure go into that and flip it from a 6-6 to a 7-5, 8-4, 9-3. That's what we could be looking at for USC. But hey, if you guys go out and beat Utah, then that kind of changes the script, and we could be talking about, hey, if this team kind of makes a run, maybe you guys win the South, go up against Oregon or whoever wins the North if we have a shocker there, and then you guys are fighting for the Pac-12 title game. I'm not gonna blow those expectations and blow the roof off, because I don't think we get there, but really that Utah game next week is going to be a big one, and maybe I talk about it, maybe I don't, depending on what happens here in week number 3. But yeah, for USC, the this next week will show us how Slovis plays on the road. Then it's your big one in Utah that's going to kind of define your season of the expectations of if you win against Utah, then you're thinking, okay, we could possibly win the Pac-12. If you lose against Utah, okay, take care of business the rest of the way. And this could be a team that just did better than the expectations than we thought at the beginning of the season. But this is where I want you guys to come in. Trojan fans, let me know what you guys think. Obviously, you guys are going to be excited about Slovis playing well in his first start last week. It's his first start on the road this week against BYU. What's your expectations for this team? Do you guys think you can handle Utah and kind of flip it into the, hey, now we're fighting for the Pac-12 title game? Are you looking at, hey, if we finish with 7 wins, I'll be happy? Are you looking for 8 wins, maybe 9 wins? What's going on in your mind? Let me know what you're thinking down below.